Hey guys, Ravel here, a geek out of place. E3 is finally over, and boy was it a big one. I'm doing something a little different today. You guys might not be used to this coming from me, but I am so excited to have my first ever special guest, friend and YouTuber, Kimchica.
Hello!
Thank you for being on my show today. I mean, it's not really a podcast, but this is podcast style.
Yeah, I like it. It's like you get the face and the voice, you know? So
Yeah.
it's video cast.
Well, what do you do on your channel?
What do I do? Lots of indie games. I'm a really big indie game fan, so a lot of more story-driven games as well. Some horror. I dabble, like in Outlast and Resident Evil, but main interest is indie games and more like RPGs.
Right on. You also throw up your dance choreography every now and then?
I do. I teach dance and I'm a part of a dance company, so every once in a while you'll get the non-gamer side of me. So
Yeah. And
I either sit and game or move around and dance.
and honestly, your choreography stuff is some of my favorite content
Thank
from
you.
you. Yeah, so we've been friends on Twitter for a little while now, and it's finally nice to start to do something like this with you. But we're going to talk today about E3 2017 and all of its glory.
Yeah. All the shining moments and the meh moments.
Yeah.
All of it.
Overall, everything's said and done with. What is your overall impressions of the show?
Oh my gosh. I mean, overall I thought it was actually fairly solid. You know, I've been reading a lot about how people said it was sort of boring, that there wasn't a whole lot there, but I felt like it actually got me excited about games again. Like, there were quite a few titles that made me really pumped to go in and like play the originals so I can get ready for the sequels. You know, obviously cringe moments.
Oh, there were a few.
There were a few. There were some disappointments in the sense that I was expecting more, but I thought it was a pretty solid show.
Yeah, I agree with you. The I compared to some in the past, there weren't as many cringeworthy moments.
Yeah, I think some of the like Sony, you know, they just tried to avoid that by not letting people talk in the first place.
Right. I think a lot of them came from EA, which was the very first press conference.
Oh my gosh. You know, but it was good. It got it all sort of out of the
way. Oh yeah.
So, and it was like only up from there.
So what I thought we'd do today is just go chronologically, break down each press conference that we saw over the past weekend. Mm-hmm. And not hit every single point, but just some standout ones. Some of the stuff we're looking forward to the most. Some of the stuff that we thought wasn't up to par, I guess. Mm-hmm. To get right into it, EA was the first one. What were some standout moments from the EA press conference for you?
You know, the standout positive moment for me was A Way Out. Is that shady? Is that bad?
No, not on here.
I mean, you know, I'm actually very excited for A Way Out. You know, it's by the developers who created Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, I think was that tagline for the title. And in Brothers, these developers focused on, you know, the relationship almost that you had with yourself in terms of controlling the game.
Right.
Which I thought was really cool. And I like how they sort of took a step back and said, all right, well, you sort of figured out this relationship of you playing a game almost with yourself. And now let's do this, but with two people, you know, with a real life friend.
Yes.
Or at least a person you forced to play a game with you. And how does that change the dynamic of playing a game?
Oh, I know. I can't remember a recent title that lets you partake in a co-op story like this.
Yeah.
That isn't just like the single player campaign with a friend tacked on.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of even other games that have this level of need for the other player, because the way they seem to have designed it is you have to find a way to cooperate somehow or you're not getting further in the game, which is a really interesting thing to force gamers to do.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to competing against our friends.
Right. There were some fun things that stood out to me in A Way Out, like the way the split screen would work. like one player controlled character, you'd still have to be going through the level and figuring something out, but the other player got a cutscene.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Or it seemed like you can see what the other player, like you have each other in each other's vision.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see how that balances, and also what it's like to be playing while you're listening to a cutscene. I think it runs the risk of being maybe a little sensory overload depending on how they balance it.
Maybe.
So I'm interested to see how that actually feels like when you're playing. Yeah, I just know that you just got to pick who you play with wisely.
Exactly. Like, we both game a lot with our spouses, and this could be potential for a little,
yeah,
maybe just like getting at odds with each other.
Yeah, it's like you need, like, what is it, like a code word, safe word for when it's time to
Nope,
stop.
I'm out. We gotta just
Yeah,
take
you're
5,
like,
take a
Peaches,
breather.
We need to stop for a second. But no, that for me was EA's standout, which was interesting because, you know, the way that they designed their conference show was like games like Battlefront and Need for Speed. Like, those were supposed to be sort of the big ones that you're supposed to be excited about.
And all the EA sports titles that we kind of talked about this. I'm not a sports game guy, really.
Me neither. Yeah, I'm not into sports in real life, so even game versions of these sports aren't exciting to me.
Like, I think the last EA, like a Madden title I played was 2004.
Oh, geez,
So
I'm trying to think.
It's been a long time.
That's like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Battlefront, I think I'll
Battlefront
watch
2.
a little bit. I'll watch a little bit more to see if I want to play it.
I was
it looks
disappointed.
Beautiful.
It did look beautiful. I was disappointed that they didn't show off any single player stuff during the press conference.
Because that was sort of the thing that was going to be different.
Yeah.
Really.
EA's press conference was a mixed bag. It went from like super cringe to the lead actress in this story. I might be butchering her name, but Janina Gavankar.
Yeah, I think that's pretty close. That's close enough.
When she came out on stage in that killer dress, surrounded by stormtroopers,
that was pretty awesome.
Yes, she commanded presence. She was just a force of personality. And I had a swoon moment after it. I put it out on Twitter.
Such a great word. Swoon moment.
I complimented her on Twitter, and she liked it. I didn't even mention her. I just put her name up and like, oh my god.
That's great. You know, it's like not a big deal, but it is. When that happens.
So EA's went from like weird teleprompter fails and awkward.
I felt so bad for that.
Gosh. And awkward live, like pseudo live commentary over the Battlefront. I guess like fake esports thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I hate it. You know, I feel like I've seen publishers do this a fair amount of times, and every time it happens, I'm like, why are you staging this like live streaming gameplay? It just never ever works.
It never comes off as authentic, which is what they wanted to, or like at least like an ideal version of an authentic experience. But Battlefront was definitely a standout for me.
Yeah, I think, and again, I'm really excited to see sort of what the single story campaign looks like. I'm excited to be able to play a female.
Yes.
Because, I just like to play girls because I am one, or women. And, I think I've been getting back into Star Wars. I was really into Star Wars when I was a kid. Then it kind of petered out for me, in high school and college. And with sort of the new movies and sort of the revival of the franchise, really since Disney took over and started really pushing it, I started getting back into it. So I really am intrigued, and it's a game that I want to play, but I just need to see a little bit more.
Battlefield 1, I'm intrigued by. I know I have some gamer friends who I play Battlefield 1 with who I will probably get the expansion for it, but I'm not. It didn't really catch my fancy as much as Star Wars did.
Well, and I think that's a really good point where you say like catch sort of the fantasy and catch that intrigue, and we've talked about this before a little bit, but like games like Battlefront, even though I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, I'm not huge into like shooters and like gunplay and all that kind of stuff. Because of that fantasy element, I'm more willing to sort of jump into it. For whatever reason, it just seems a little bit more fantastical and more exciting as a story to me. So
Yeah.
although the Battlefield 1 DLC, the all-female soldier story, I think is a really cool one.
Yes,
that
and that
I would never expect to have happened.
And that is actually, I guess that's an actual historical thing that I knew nothing about. The title of the expansion is called In the Name of the Tsar. That reminds me of a stupid joke.
Oh, yeah?
All right, so let's say if the Tsar is a king, is a father, and the Tsarina is a mother, what do you call the children?
What do you call the children?
Sardines.
Oh my god.
And and during this press conference, they also teased Anthem.
Yes, they did.
But we didn't actually get... Sorry?
We didn't... Oh, yeah, we didn't actually get to that.
Right. It was like a 30-minute teaser, but they showed it off during the Xbox conference.
Right. Which I thought was interesting, and I don't know why they did it that way. I don't know if it's because Xbox just has maybe more, like, of an audience. I don't know.
I would guess, considering how spectacular the game looks, Microsoft might have had a little back and forth with EA saying, let's show this game off on the Xbox One X, which is a segue.
Yep. This is what is known as a transition into the next topic.
I'm pro podcaster.
Yeah.
So the Xbox One X, you are not as big an Xbox fan as I am.
No, you definitely hold the fort down here for the Xbox.
And honestly, the more and more people I talk to, I seem to be one of the only ones. But I'm going to say that this console seems to be made for me. I'm not going to break down the specs here, because I didn't want this to be like every single bullet point from E3. But it is as of right now, the most powerful console out there.
Teraflop rules.
Yes, all the teraflops. I used to know what that meant, but okay. So Terra means a trillion. Flops is floating.
What happens?
Floating point. Okay, here it is. I remember off the top of my head. Floating points of operations per second.
It sounds really impressive.
That doesn't necessarily. That doesn't spell flops, but they made it work, I guess. So a trillion floating points of operations per second. And to simplify it down, it means it draws things faster.
Yes.
Basically.
I like that simplified explanation.
Okay, and all this stuff is coming back to me. I could look it up. It would be so easy to look it up. The PS4 Pro has 4.2 teraflops, compared to the Xbox One X's 6-ish teraflops.
So
that might give you a frame of reference. Sorry.
And my question to you, especially because for me, a lot of this seemed to be about also resolution as well as processing power, and so I'm wondering, and my biggest question when seeing the Xbox One X sort of become more revealed, and they were describing it as what kind of gamer would want this?
Boy.
And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
That is a really good question. Much after this conference, just the day of recording, one of the heads at Xbox said he knows very well that this console is marketed towards the hardcore gamers and the hardcore Xbox fans. And the Xbox One S, the cheaper, less powerful version of the Xbox One console, is for the mass. The general public who just wants an Xbox, because they can both play the same games.
Right.
And almost all of these Xbox games so can PC. It's a really tough question, because I'm a huge Xbox fan, and since my current Xbox is broken, basically, this is the perfect time for me to buy this console.
Right.
But that's really hard to say.
Well, and being very honest, if I were in the market to get an Xbox, I would get the Xbox One X. That's just because for me, as a gamer and a consumer, I'm looking at this, and at the very least, it's it's a machine you can grow with, at least,
Yes.
with the current market. Whereas, if you were getting a Xbox One S, those letters are so
I know.
close.
Oh, I know.
But our pronunciation is going to get so good.
I should
But
hope
the
so.
One S, is not something I necessarily feel like I could grow with. So the longevity for me would be a factor. I don't know if that's sort of naive as a consumer of me to think that way. But, I can see how, like, I would purchase a One X, if I was in the
Okay.
market for it.
Okay. It's funny you say that because you're a gamer. You obviously know the difference between this. And I feel the same. I feel like it was kind of the same situation with the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. The branding on the PS4 Pro is a bit more specific in that, the Pro is obviously the better model.
Right.
With the Xbox One X sounding a lot like the Xbox One S, I can see, like, we messed around with this analogy earlier, like a well-meaning grandma buying a Christmas gift for her grandson. He knows what he wants. He's going to want the super powerful console, but if they can both play Xbox games and if they're both Xbox Ones,
Right.
why not get the cheaper one?
So it's kind of, and we've been talking and seeing about how this new form of, rather than having new consoles, we have new iterations of consoles. And
Right.
it's just like these sort of micro updates, it's bigger than a micro update, but we're updating consoles rather than releasing a whole new generation. And I'm just interested to see how that plays out in the future, especially once we get to a point where, like, my PS4, for example, is going to be aged out in a little bit. What am I going to do? What's going to be there for me to purchase?
Right.
Like PS4 Pro X? I don't know.
If Sony did that, that'd be amazing.
That would be hilarious.
I did see a funny post. So the Xbox One X initials spell Xbox,
Oh, yeah, they do.
and then someone replied, "Would you say it made a full circle,
Oh, my gosh.
or a 360?"
Oh, my goodness.
I don't want to get too hung up on this.
Yeah.
If I were to simply answer your question, it's for me. Microsoft made this for me, and that's.
Which is why they should send you a free one.
Oh, Microsoft, if you're listening, you obviously are. Yeah. So, but besides the console, they showed off a lot of games.
And my favorite games that they showed off were actually all of the more indie games.
Right.
They have these AAA titles, Anthem is kind of their new, like, I called it their new Destiny, basically.
Yeah, it is. It does remind me of Destiny a bit.
Yeah, and, they've got, what is it, like Forza 7, they've got a lot of these sort of AAA titles that are happening, but I'm most excited for games like Cuphead.
Oh, yes, Cuphead.
What was the one by the Gone Home developers?
Tacoma.
Tacoma. Yeah, I'm
That was an
excited for
interesting one.
Tacoma.
The art style of that one reminded me of Prey a bit.
Yeah.
Because it's set
Yeah,
in
it did.
space. It has that weird art style. I don't remember the name of it right now.
Oh, Life is Strange 2?
Yes, of course.
Oh my gosh, Life is Strange 2! That made me super excited just because Life is Strange is just, that made me feel everything and nothing at the same time.
Yeah, I have a deep appreciation for that game, though I've never played it myself. I've seen plenty of people. My wife absolutely loved it.
Oh, it's so good. So I can't wait to see the prequel, since it's telling the story of Chloe, I believe. And let's see what other sort of more indie games. Ori and The Will of the Wisp
Yes, a sequel.
was, oh my gosh. That's
I-
another game that, ooh, so much heart.
Oh, I know. I've said it before, if not on this channel, other places. I love indie games because they don't feel the need to push like super realistic graphics. The artists and designers can actually take time to create beautiful looking games, and Ori and the Blind Forest is definitely one of those standout games that just looked gorgeous. So more of that is always good. I did have some AAA titles that I was looking forward to. Metro Exodus. Do you know the Metro series at all?
I'm not super well. I played actually just recently for work. I played Metro 2033, And I
Okay.
actually thought it was really fun, really linear, which made me excited for Metro Exodus because they're
Yes.
now taking like more open world sort of tack
Right.
that I feel like everyone's taking now. So I'm excited about it, but I don't know too much. So
Yeah, so I've played through both of the first games, and I finished, I think, last night. I think that's what it's called. I might be wrong.
oh yes,
I have it.
Last Light. I
Last
think maybe
Light?
Yeah,
One of them.
something like
I don't
that.
remember. So these are they're developed by a Russian. I want to say a Russian development company. They're based on Russian post-apocalyptic sci-fi novels. And this
Which
one,
I really want to read now.
this one isn't based on a specific novel, but it's inspired by and takes place in the same world. It was just amazing to see it running on the Xbox One X hardware. Because those games, yes, they are linear. They remind me a bit of the old Half-Life games.
Yeah, they did. Now that you mention it.
It doesn't seem that linear because the way it's designed, they're just like subtly holding your hand through it. And then we didn't talk about this beforehand, but Assassin's Creed Origins.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited for that. I haven't played. Let's see, I've played the first Assassin's Creed, but I haven't played all the others. But I've watched them all
Yes.
online, like Let's Plays. I think the move to Egypt is really cool. The trailer was just, the trailer. The thing about all these trailers is they're all so beautiful.
Yes.
So it's like, I feel like I say that so much, but I think Assassin's Creed was cool because like they had the hawk where you could like sort of tag people and as you were getting ready to sort of like go into this enemy base. And so I think the gameplay seemed like they've sort of updated it a little bit more
Yeah.
in a way that I am wanting to play it.
So I used to be a big fan of Assassin's Creed, but then they started going the Call of Duty route where it was just just iterative year after year after year.
Yeah.
But so they took a year off of Assassin's Creed, which I was happy for because I think that extra time really shows in this, where the combat is updated and newer, and yeah, the Egyptian setting is gorgeous. Watching the trailer, and I was even watching some gameplay of it after the fact. I think it was PC gameplay. Just going from the sands to the shores of the Nile, hopping on a boat.
Yeah.
It's just
you can feel like the heat of the sand. It's really cool.
Gorgeous. So I'm genuinely excited for this. I haven't been excited for an Assassin's Creed game in a long time. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is coming to Xbox One X first.
Yeah.
This game is blown up on Twitch and other streaming sources just because it's a fun game to play and it's a fun game to watch.
I was going to say, I haven't played it. I've only watched it. So this is one where now that it's sort of coming out, I think there's a PS4 version coming out later. So I'll probably
yes,
get
eventually.
it on
Yeah.
PS4 eventually, yeah. But I love watching it. So I'm excited to see what happens now that the audience is sort of expanding. What was really neat, especially when compared to, and we can talk about more later, with Sony, was I loved that Microsoft had so many games that are cross-platform or available through multiple venues.
Right.
There aren't many console exclusives, or if any, were there any console exclusives?
Forza and Crackdown, but
Yeah.
but it's kind of weird because they're both available for Windows 10.
Right, so it's like still sort of not really an exclusive, if you in that sense.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword because I don't know. It's weird being an Xbox fan and wanting just awesome games, awesome system sellers that we don't have.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it becomes a where do they see themselves getting that money from, from that business standpoint. It's like if they're getting games out to as many people as possible with, and they're getting money from these games, I guess that makes sense. But it's true, whereas I'm a PlayStation person, and it's because I know that PlayStation has the more exclusive titles, so I'd rather get that console and then play on PC, because I know eventually the Xbox games will probably happen on PC.
Yes.
But
If
it's
not,
interesting to see, yeah.
if not through Steam, then through the Windows Store.
Mm-hmm.
Sea of Thieves was showing off a bit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for Sea of Thieves. Pirates. Like,
yeah.
Cartoon pirates,
Cartoony
too.
pirates.
Cartoony pirates.
I love how... so you can just join up with some friends. You're all pirates. You don't really get to talk with each other, but you can play music with each other. You can you get these cool little treasure maps, and you have to work together to find the treasure on different islands in the open world.
Like playing music together. It's one of those things that is like, does that really, what does that add to the game? But there's so much, and I think when you compare it to something like Skull and Bones, which is another really beautiful pirate game, I would much rather play Sea of Thieves because it has these like little touches that add that character.
Yeah.
And that fun. I think the theme and sort of a lot of the takeaway this year, now that I'm thinking about it from E3, was how much I needed to have fun with my games, at least right now. And so the games that I really gravitated towards and the announcements I was really excited about were those that celebrated the fun and the heart of gaming more so than like next gen graphics or
And I will say this about Xbox right now, where the state of the Xbox One, when it came out, it was a little underpowered compared to the PS4 at the time. But they were pushing, like, this is going to be your all-in-one media where you can watch your movies, your TV, your music, have Windows apps on it. And that didn't really pan out for them. So it seems like they're learning their lesson and putting games first. So with their... some of these indie games we talked about are coming from ID at Xbox, which is like it's the indie game, the Foster? It's a program that fosters indie development for Xbox.
Yes. And that's... I have to say, again, I'm not an Xbox... Like, I'm an Xbox fan, but I don't have an Xbox.
Right.
But when I see them do that, like support indie developers, really try to push for titles, in their repertoire, that makes me excited and makes me want to see where they're going. Because... with the stable of games that they had now with Ori, Life is Strange, Cuphead, I think, that all of that makes me want to play their games. And, eventually maybe if I find myself wanting more of those games, I might just get an Xbox just because it's easier,
Yes.
So I think that's a smart way to play it if that's their intention. So.
Right on. I think Scorpio was a cooler title, to be honest, but...
I was talking about that with my friend too. We were like, Scorpio just sounded way more like
it did.
Just cool and
get over here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the name, I don't know.
I see why they did it. It reminds me of like phone models, like like iPhone models. Yeah. Overall, I was pretty impressed with the games they showed off. Less so considering that they weren't exclusive as they'd like people to think, but I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
Moving on to Bethesda's conference.
Bethesda. I think
and it was super late at night too. Like it was 10 o'clock my time when I was watching this.
That's true.
Which is odd.
I feel like that kind of put them already like on a shorter end of the stick. But I think they could have made it like into this really amazing like party, like if you're going on at 10 at night, you've got to just like go for it.
And it's not like they didn't try it. The whole thing was Bethesda Land.
Yeah.
I guess it would have been more fun if you were there.
You had to be there moment.
Watching it live from home, I don't think it translated very well. We're both Bethesda fans.
Yeah, and I was rooting for them. I think for me the two kind of meh moments of the show, E3 shows were EA and Bethesda, and I was disappointed because I like Bethesda games. I enjoy, like, they usually have great story, good RPGs, but I think the note that I wrote when I was watching them was more Skyrim question mark.
Yeah.
It had like a lot of just 2-word, 1-word sort of notes.
Right on.
Because for me, this just reinforced the fact that they're releasing stuff that I already knew about and hadn't seen anything new enough to make me care again.
Yeah, I was so underwhelmed by this one.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people keep asking for another Elder Scrolls game, another, like, a Fallout spin-off, but Bethesda kept saying, we're working on brand new IPs, just wait, it's going to be awesome, but they didn't show us anything new here. I mean, not for new IP-wise. We got some VR versions of games we already have.
Which is cool. I think it's
yeah.
neat to show that they're pushing to VR. But I don't know if showing games that we kind of already have experienced in VR, like I want to see something new in VR.
Yeah, totally. And I, since I don't have any VR hardware yet, this wasn't the conference this wasn't the press conference that would sell me on buying some yet. I think the standout for me was Wolfenstein 2. I haven't really played any of the recent Wolfenstein titles, but this one seemed like just nuts enough to get me intrigued.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to go back and play maybe like the original to sort of get into the world a little bit, or
I just might. If I remember right, I think the previous game was Wolfenstein: The New Order. It was like $20, so that I can pick up a game for that just to see what it's all about. Because I'm not into the Wolfenstein series at all. What about you? What stood out to you in this one?
I mean, if I had to pick, probably Evil Within 2.
Because you lean more towards horror games.
A little bit, yeah. Like when I do choose to play, mostly because they freak me out a little bit too much to play sometimes. I think, but even that was a tentative interest because the trailer was really cool. You know, you've got like the white and sort of like the milky hand coming out.
There was some really weird imagery in that trailer.
It looked like it could be really interesting, but then there wasn't enough, like, I didn't really see gameplay. I didn't really see anything that, like, sold me on it.
Right.
So, again, for Bethesda, it's like even the most interesting thing to me was still, I guess I'm going to wait to see what else they put out before I make a sort of decision on actually liking it.
Yeah. I'm okay if that's all we say about Bethesda.
Yeah.
I'll still play their games. I love them, but...
Me too, exactly.
But meh. Next up was Ubisoft.
Woo!
And I think a lot of people had their expectations so low for the Ubisoft one.
Which worked in their favor.
Yes, it did.
Well, what was when you were kind of done with the Ubisoft announcement, like how did you feel?
Okay, so I mean, we've been hearing a lot about, well, I had mentioned Assassin's Creed Origins already, a game we knew about like a year ago, like it was leaked like crazy. So I was always intrigued by that. Then Far Cry 5 was coming out. I was excited to see more of that because I love the Far Cry games. But Beyond Good and Evil 2 just blew my freaking mind.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I remember seeing a tweet of one of the journalists covering the conference. They said, before the conference even started, if they announced Beyond Good and Evil 2, I will eat this coffee mug. He didn't, obviously, but
right.
That's just how...
And then they tweeted from the hospital.
Shattered teeth. No, but that everyone... I mean, it was one of those running jokes, like Half-Life 3. They weren't...
Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts, yes.
Yeah.
How they're never going to do it, but they freaking did it.
Oh, man. Well, and to be totally honest, I had it wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah,
like
same
it
goes.
wasn't there. And so when that trailer started, and you see this sort of the city, and then you see like the monkey, and you're just like, wait a second, hold on. And
oh, exactly.
Oh my gosh, my heart was fluttering, and then when the devs came out and they were tearing up because they were just so proud and excited to announce it, I started crying.
After 15 years just in development hell, I couldn't imagine being in their shoes, just finally showing the world it's coming.
We are doing it. We promise. Yeah, that was one of the most like joyful moments for me. And
Ubisoft had a lot of those.
They did. I feel like, again, going back to that idea of like playing video games should be fun and joyful. It's like, yeah, you can play horror games, but there still has to be that element of like, there's a certain type of joy you're getting from it, right?
Yeah.
And Ubisoft channeled that emotion, and they like took us on that emotional ride so much better than any of, maybe other than like Nintendo, I think. They were up there for me in terms of how they did that.
Well, speaking of Nintendo, Mario plus Rabbids.
Yeah. Go figure. That's like one of the titles I'm so excited about.
So before the conference, a couple of days before, we got a few leaks saying that this was coming, and I've never cared about a Rabbids game at all. The weird Rayman vermin.
Yeah.
And then to tie that with Mario just seemed like the oddest thing.
Well, and right before we recorded this, I had mentioned to you, my first thought was like, I was just thinking about how they were planning on sucking this dry. Like, how much do they really need this money? And the only time I've ever played a Rabbids game was that like Raving Rabbids, and I think it was like a college drinking game thing that we did. Which was great, but definitely
it sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it was really fun, but never looked at it again. And I was so happy to see the game and how like I laughed during the trailer. It looks playful. The tactics element is really refreshing.
Yeah, who'd have thought that Mario and Rabbids together in an XCOM game?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, and it's funny because I was just the other day listening to a podcast and thinking about Mario Legend of the Seven Stars.
Yes,
and how it was
Mario
really
RPG.
Cool. Yes, and seeing how a Mario game was taking on like that different gameplay style, and I was like, I want something like that. I want something like
exactly
that changes the way I think about Mario, or I would love an RPG, but anything. And then this was announced, and the gameplay looks so much fun. It looks like so much fun.
It does. And Shigeru Miyamoto even came out on stage with the other devs from Ubisoft, and he's just, I love that man because he's just the biggest dork. Speaking of what you were talking about, he wants to make games that are fun to play because he has fun making games himself. He's just so endearing.
Yeah, well, and when he and the dev were holding like the guns, and it was so awkward. But it was like,
awkward.
But it was an awkward that I was like, this is the kind of awkward that I'm willing to watch because you can see the love that they have for what they're doing. Whereas like other awkward moments, I'm like, oh, this is just awkward because it's a little painful.
There were a lot of, there weren't that as many as I think people expected, but
no, I don't think so too.
Totally agree with you.
But yeah, that was a really fun announcement. That was very pleasantly surprising.
Yes.
And what was cool is they took us on a little bit more of a ride than other developers did. Like you had this, really fun, family-friendly game like Mario and Rabbids, and then you have games like Transference.
Oh yeah.
Where what was your thought on the trailer there?
I think I was half paying attention when this came on. Like, oh, weird, Elijah Wood.
Right.
Wait, Elijah Wood. What is he? He's talking about a VR game. So is he talking to us? No, that's part of the game. What is going on here?
Yeah. Inception.
We didn't get much more than that weird trailer.
No.
But I like the fact that VR is being taken a lot more seriously these days, and it's not just, even as opposed to last year where it's like you would get an hour-long tech demo. So to see some like Hollywood clout behind a VR title is intriguing.
It was like Frodo was speaking to me. It was so great. I loved it. And I'm excited to see just how a full game in VR will feel like, how it'll look like, what it'll be just like to play a game that's longer than a tech demo, like you said.
I would like to know more about this game. I think just the medium of video games, once you get past like the first hurdles and you make like a walking simulator or you make like a horror experience, but when you can finally start to play with the mechanics, and VR is still such new territory in gaming.
Right. Well, and oh, go ahead.
I hope that I just would like to see something unique from this game when it finally does start to show more of itself.
Yeah, I was I was in a live stream earlier today, and we were talking about VR because what we're seeing right now is it's like the baby steps that they're taking to make people get into it. So you're seeing the stuff that we would expect with horror games. They're all first person. I'm really excited for sort of the two next steps that I see VR needing to take to make it more mainstream, and that's getting those emotionally invested. Getting you emotionally invested in a virtual, like a VR game.
Yes.
Because so far they haven't been emotionally investing. Maybe like the horror games a little bit, but getting past that like sort of low-hanging fruit of horror and going into something deeper. And I'm really excited to see how they play with changing perspective. So not necessarily having it be first-person perspective.
Exactly.
I was thinking do you remember Black and White? Sort of those God Sims where you could manipulate.
Oh yeah.
That would be so neat to play
there's a game
in
I
VR.
haven't. There's a game I haven't.
I know.
Yeah.
Taking it way back.
No kidding.
Or playing The Sims in VR. Playing because you're literally playing God at that point.
There's a game or two down below in the Sony section we can talk about, but I do like that take on it because you're right. Most VR titles right now are first person, which is cool for the it's an easy way in for the immersion.
Right. It makes total sense, but I'd love to see how, especially when indie developers really get to play with the way that VR works, I'd love to see how people can take perspective and start changing it.
Any low points for you from Ubisoft?
Any low points? Honestly, the dancing was as a dancer.
I'd love to get your take on that because you being a dancer.
No, major props to the dancers. It's always from that perspective. I've done shows with Microsoft before, these conferences, so I understand there are constraints that you have to deal with, and
oh, totally.
But it's always, I feel like it's always so awkward to have a random dance break in these things. I don't know, but I enjoyed it mostly because I like watching dance.
Right.
But yeah, it was still one of those ooh, maybe I'll go grab a snack at this point in time. But Just Dance is a great game, so I'm super excited for it.
I've never played them.
They're really fun. I wish I had a way to I had the setup to be able to just stream that because I would just stream it nonstop.
Cool.
What about Far Cry 5? I know you're a fan of the Far Cry series. What do you think about that?
Oh geez, okay. Well, this is a game we've known about for a little while. They announced it earlier this year. The gameplay they showed off was exactly what they needed to show off for this game. I love the setting. I love the dog companions that you can work with and train and have you fetch guns. I remember the crowd just going wild when the dog grabbed that gun. This just makes me more excited. I told you before we recorded, if I was or maybe I mentioned it even now, Far Cry 5 was the game I wanted to see from Ubisoft. That was the only thing I cared about, but they blew me away with everything else here. And maybe, I guess, looking back, Far Cry 5 kind of got shuffled down in my memory. It's oh yeah, that game is still coming out and it's going to be awesome. I'm just pumped. I'm pumped all around.
Yeah, I think for me, they were so smart in ending with Beyond Good and Evil 2 because that's the highest of high notes. But Far Cry 5, you're exactly right. I needed to see how the gameplay was going to work, and what they showed off was so good that there's no doubt in my mind I'm getting Far Cry 5. I'm super excited to play it because of how they keep pushing this. I forget the exact phrase they used, but they're really trying to make it so that each gameplay experience is unique to the player.
Yeah.
And each time you play it, and so. It looks like they're pushing that even more this time, where you might get pushed to meet certain acquaintances at some point where your friends who play the game don't get that same option. So I love games that really make it so that each time you play it's new.
Yes.
So that got me just more excited for Far Cry.
Oh, I know. And they had mentioned it before the press conference. They played around a bit with online co-op in 3 and 4. I think maybe just 4. But the entire campaign in Far Cry 5 will be available for co-op.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
I'm excited about that too.
On top of that, you're not playing an established character. You're playing an avatar type character whom you customize, male or female. Choose your skin color, which is awesome.
Yep. I always appreciate it when games do that.
Yes.
The older I get, the more I appreciate it, I think.
Oh, so that was Ubisoft. I think everyone was pleasantly surprised by what they had to offer. Skull and Bones, did you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when it comes down to pirate games, I'm definitely more excited for, oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the title? Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves.
Pirates are in this year.
But I have to say, I love Lady Pirates. That was really cool for me. And what really sold me, honestly, was the last second of the trailer where they zoomed out and you saw the Kraken, and everyone kind of flipped out a little bit, and I did too, because I wasn't expecting it. And so you see this like shadow of the Kraken coming up under the ship, and that made me go, okay, let's see what they bring up in this game, because that's gonna be kind of the difference maker, in my opinion.
I knew you were excited for this one. I am not so much, to be honest. I do like the fact that they've basically taken some of the best parts from Assassin's Creed Black Flag, the ship combats, and they made a whole game around that. That is cool, because this year we're getting a lot of pirate games, but we don't really have too many pirate games historically.
This is the year of the pirate, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Those are some solid mechanics, and it's nice to see a whole game revolve around that. I've never seen a game play like that.
So Sony.
Oh my gosh.
Sony.
Kind of a rough start there, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I think everyone walked away happy with Sony. For the most part.
I agree.
I'm not to overgeneralize on this.
Yeah.
As a Sony, as a PlayStation fan, what are your thoughts?
I think I could liken it to going to a restaurant that I know is going to be good. But I wasn't surprised. But I knew it was going to be good. I had a great time, great meal, but it wasn't anything that like rocked my boat.
That's a perfect analogy.
They had some pretty much all of their announcements, I think with the exception for me of like Spider-Man, I knew were coming. And all of these games, and Shadow of the Colossus, we'll have to spend, that's like a whole section.
We'll save that one for last.
Unto itself. But everything else is, you look at it and you know it's going to be a good game, it's going to be developed, pretty well, but nothing surprising, and a lot of things that we've kind of been waiting for, or that will happen, the things that we've been waiting for weren't talked about.
Right.
I figured they wouldn't talk about Last of Us 2, but I also really wish they would have.
Yeah, we didn't really touch on this earlier, but there were a couple things I think fans were looking forward to that weren't mentioned at all.
Yeah.
I'd say The Last of Us 2 is definitely one of them. And then I know a lot of Bloodborne fans were hoping for maybe this would be the year they announced Bloodborne 2. We didn't get those, but we did get a couple surprises.
We did. And I think, you've been kind of asking what are the standouts for each sort of publisher?
Yes.
And for me, Shadow of the Colossus stole the show.
Oh my god.
It stole the show.
Yes, it did.
For Sony. Oh my gosh. It's where do we even start?
I know. I love remakes like this because that's how we remember games looking.
Exactly. That's such a good point.
And going back to playing them again recently,
it's such a disappointment.
A little bit. It's still, of course it's the same game, but oh my god. So, and everyone's saying it, everyone's this is remade custom for the PS4. This isn't an HD remaster like the PS3 got not too long ago.
Yeah. So Shadow of the Colossus is, I think for so many people, one of those games that just really redefined what games could be.
Oh, yes.
Like for me, it was one of those games that it changed the way I thought about how games could affect me, like when I wasn't even gaming. I thought about it so much when I finished it, the ending and sort of the implications of as this hero or this protagonist, maybe not necessarily hero, like what's going on.
But is he a hero? These monsters, these colossi aren't really doing anything.
Exactly. And it was the first game that did that to me, that made me think about, wait, this game is telling me to do something, but what if as a player I don't necessarily want to do it, but I can't go further until I defeat these colossi. It was so good. And good.
Yeah, and Team Ico is so good about making these minimal games with no dialogue, no clutter. It's just simple and straightforward. But to see it again, just rendered in probably 4K because it's going to be on the PS4 Pro.
Right.
I mentioned it to you earlier too. Just this game is 15 years old now, and there are gamers younger than that game who will be playing this for the first time.
Yeah, it's so great.
So yeah, that was probably besides Spider-Man, that was the game I was looking forward to the most. I think. Go ahead.
Oh, and I think with what I'm hoping for with Shadow of the Colossus, I mean, I'm going to probably be happy with whatever they do with it, to be really honest. But I know that they have mentioned before that there are colossi that weren't included because it just they weren't able to fit them in. And so I'm really excited because I've always felt like Shadow of the Colossus was a game that in the heads of the developers was so much bigger than what the PlayStation 2 was able to even do. And so what's really exciting is the software or the hardware has now finally caught up to the imagination of the developers in some ways. So I'm really excited to see what they do with the ability to actually kind of go through with everything they want to imagine.
Oh, I entirely agree with you.
So that'll be really fun. But yes, Spider-Man.
Oh.
And you are a Spider-Man fan.
Just blew me away.
Spidey fan.
Spider fan. Growing up, Spider-Man was my favorite reading comics. Mm-hmm. I like the movies enough, not so much the later ones. I love that this game isn't tied to a Spider-Man movie. So it gives the developers some freedom, and they don't have to... There's always going to be the crunch that the devs face, but they don't have to tie it with any release date or anything. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's coming out next year.
Right.
But the demo they showed off was super slick. Some of the web moves that he was doing, and just the way he was running up skyscrapers, just blew me away. You've never seen Spider-Man move like that. Yeah,
I've never seen that in a superhero game. Like, he actually seemed like he was a superhero.
Right.
It was really cool. Right. Well, and I think the movement in my head, I remember when I was a kid thinking about, Spider-Man and seeing sort of the animated series, which wasn't all that great. But it was still, you see this fluidity in Spider-Man that I have not seen in any of, the Spider-Man games. Even in the movies, you can't do that. That's not physically possible. And so to see that fluidity in his movement, the combat looks like it would feel amazing to control.
Oh, yes. And I think Insomniac Games was the perfect studio to make this game, because the Ratchet & Clank series was always just the controls in those games were always just solid, the jumping and the shooting. And then it reminds me a lot of a game they did for the Xbox, Sunset Overdrive. That was an Xbox exclusive, but it had a similar thing where it was really floaty, super smooth movement along rails. I am super happy for this game. I can't wait to play it. Mm-hmm. Any other standouts from Sony?
Yes, there's one more. My husband actually mentioned this. I had not heard of this before, but Moss.
Oh,
it's the VR game.
Yeah, during the VR section.
Yes.
That looked adorable.
It's like Redwall. I don't know if you ever read those series.
I never read the series, but I remember there being an animated
Yes,
show.
I actually never saw the animated series, but Redwall is this great, sort of fantasy story for kids, where you're this like mouse warrior, and Moss looks like Redwall, which is just warmed my heart.
Yeah.
Melted my ice cold heart.
We had touched on that earlier because it's a VR game, but you're it's like a kind of like a god character controlling Moss. I think.
you can see Moss's like little ears, so you're not going through that first person's perspective.
Right.
And what again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with VR sort of going past just that low hanging fruit of horror.
Yeah.
It's a story, it's a adventure, and so I think it's really smart of them to start releasing titles that do more than just either a tech demo or like a quick emotional burst reaction.
Right.
So I'm really excited to see that.
Yes. Monster Hunter World. We didn't really talk about this earlier.
Yeah. I'm excited. I like the Monster Hunter series.
I do too. I had a Monster Hunter. I don't remember the title, but I had it on the PSP.
Oh, nice.
So I remember when Monster Hunter was on other consoles than just Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to see it like on a big old screen playing for my PS4 and PC for that matter.
I'm really excited. Let's see, I played Monster Hunter on 3DS. I think that was the last Monster Hunter title I've played, if I remember correctly. I think that was Monster Hunter. Yeah, but it's been a while since I've played them. I felt like it was such an underdog, though.
Yeah.
I felt kind of bad because it's going to look like it looks amazing. I think
Yes, it does.
Their trailer, honestly, I think did the game a little bit of a disservice.
Right.
I
know exactly what you mean because I think since it's been on Nintendo's handhelds, it hasn't really gotten a huge following here in the States.
Right.
So if you know what Monster Hunter is, then you're totally on board, and that's what the trailer was for. But everyone else who's never heard of it, like, why is? Well, I was talking to some friends the other day. They're asking like, what is up with cooking meat on the spit?
And I saw that, and I was like, yeah.
I know that's like a huge part of the game. So I'm happy to see that Monster Hunter is coming to a much broader audience.
So I think because one thing that I love about Monster Hunter is that like that co-op.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so that would have been cool to see how, because they showed what was that huge it was like a sort of like a T-Rex looking monster.
Right.
I don't know what it was. But that would have been cool instead of just seeing this like lone player trying to take out this monster. Like, why not show off the fact that you can play with your friends? Like, I remember when my friends and I got the 3DS Monster Hunter, like, the first thing we did was we called each other and we went and we're like, all right, let's go hunting.
Yeah.
And that was so much fun. And so I feel like the game is going to be really good, but the trailer made it, like, it just sold itself short, which I was really bummed about.
I entirely agree with you.
Any other standouts for you?
For me, during the press conference, God of War looks fun, but I mean,
yeah,
it's I'm not a huge God of War fan. I've always been more Xbox guy, so now that I have a PlayStation, I will definitely play it. I think the last piece of news for me I wanted to talk about was, this wasn't during the press conference, but it did come out during E3 that Undertale is getting a PS4 and Vita release soon, a couple months actually. So that's just cool. That awesome PC game that everyone knows about.
Yeah. I still, just as a side note, I've been wanting to go back and play it again, but on the Genocide route, and I can't bring myself to do it. I can't. I played Pacifist the first run through.
Of course.
And I can't do it. I can't bring myself to, and that's, it's such a good game. And again, it's just that what makes me happy is that this is a game that was developed by one guy. It's an indie game that I feel like should be so widely recognized.
Oh, I know.
And it's getting more recognition, and it's getting that wider audience.
Overall, I'm pretty happy with Sony's press conference. They stuck with what they knew.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And they also, like you said earlier, today when we were recording, I forget, but they didn't let anyone talk. They just showed the trailers they needed to show, straight to business, and it works. It works.
Yes, it does. Let the content speak for itself, and it really did.
Yeah,
like we said, as opposed to Xbox, these are all either PlayStation exclusives or, multi-platform games. I mean, the stuff that we don't like, more Destiny 2 stuff, more Call of Duty World War II stuff. But besides that, it's all Sony exclusive.
So, which again, it's an interesting juxtaposition to what Xbox, is doing.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything additional to say about it, but it's just when we kind of lay it out like that, it's just interesting comparison.
Yeah, I know fanboys are going to cry out who won, who lost. I remember watching the Xbox conference, and there was just so much salt going around, but
yeah.
Maybe I just follow too many PlayStation fans on Twitter.
Right.
Moving on to Nintendo.
Oh man, talk about fun.
Yeah, I mean Nintendo's they're always going to do their own thing. They're like I don't think they've cared much about E3 for a little while. They always do like mini conferences throughout the year.
Right. Well, and they have those like, what is it? Those Treehouse announcements?
Yeah,
is that what they called? Where they like go online and like live stream stuff?
But we did get some brand new announcements during the Nintendo one.
Really, only one in particular stood out, I think, to everyone.
Yeah.
Super Mario Odyssey.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, talk about joy in a nutshell.
Oh, no kidding.
Like, oh my gosh, just the soundtrack of the trailer is something I want to follow in my daily life, like jazz singers singing about what I do.
And did you? I don't remember if this was in the trailer, but I saw some gameplay showing off when Mario finished off the quest of gathering these musicians. It all ended in a huge fanfare and the Mario theme.
Yeah.
In that jazz.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was so
fun.
It was, fun.
Yeah, and it's like, I saw this trailer and I was smiling the whole time. Like I felt like an idiot when I kind of realized. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting at my computer by myself,
right?
like smiling
on the edge of your seat with a huge doofy grin.
Yeah, but you couldn't help but just like looking at this game. It just brings back, like, for me, the first time I got to play Mario 64.
Yeah, and
I was just. So, it was the first time I had played a game that was 3D.
Right.
I felt like we couldn't get any more real than this. Take back those words. But it was just, it brought back that just pure, like, sense of discovery and excitement. Like, I just haven't been that excited about just Mario in a really long time.
Oh, I know. All the new stuff they're bringing to the franchise. I mean, it's not like there's never been a bad Mario game. There's seeing all the new stuff. You can kind of see how maybe the franchise might have been stale in hindsight, but hey, with the hat mechanic throwing like overtaking almost anything in sight. The Bullet Bill was the one that got a lot of people excited.
Yeah. I love all of the, like, mind control, like, articles and memes that have come out since. It's like, Mario takes the darkest turn yet.
And the trailer started off with a big old T-Rex.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I think one of the funniest things I saw was, like, Yoshi in 4K.
Oh, I hadn't seen that.
I just about died when I saw it. It was so good. But, yeah, I love the fact, like, I forget the name of the city. It starts with a D. I feel like.
New Donk City.
New Donk City. But it's like, I love that there's sort of this more modern city that you're in. with like
Yeah.
real life people, sort of walking around.
And
with
you know,
Mario.
when that game was first announced, that really threw me for a loop. Like, oh, that's not Mario, but yes,
Yeah.
oh yes, it is Mario.
Yeah, and then you get
Pauline from the
yeah.
the first Donkey Kong or Mario arcade game is the mayor of New Donk City.
Yeah, it's just I feel like the stuff that they're going to put in there, like those little Easter eggs, are going to be so much fun to discover.
And it looks gorgeous on the Switch.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't believe that was on the Switch, to be honest.
I know.
That's got to be,
And it, like we had said, this is if I get any game, if any game is going to sell me on the Switch, this is it, because I can carry this in my pocket if I wanted to.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, and I've been wanting a Switch for a while. That's not, I know I'm gonna get one. It was just kind of a matter of like, well, when am I gonna get one? And for me, this Mario game kind of made it like, okay, I have. Now that's my reason, just like you said.
Oh, exactly. Because I mean, like, I have a Wii U, so of course I wanted to play Breath of the Wild, but
Right.
I played it on the Wii U. It's great. So I was just biding my time for the thing that was going to sell me on it, and this is exactly it.
It's Mario and then like a Pokemon title. For me.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see more about that.
My gosh, me too. I really, really hope it's a standalone. I really hope it's a standalone and not just like a, what is it? Where they take like Sun and Moon and like revamp it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. That.
Like kind of how they did with like Pokemon Ruby and then they did Ruby Omega or something.
Great.
I hope that they do like a standalone good Pokemon title for those with the Switch.
Okay.
Especially
I'm
because.
just curious.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just curious as to what it's going to be, because we didn't really get anything. We got a developer from Game Freak just saying it's coming.
I know, and that's my one big qualm that I've also realized this year with E3 is I'm so tired of announcements made and then no follow-up.
Right.
like seeing like Beyond Good and Evil was super exciting.
Yeah.
And Kingdom Hearts 3 was super exciting. But then I realized, like the whole time I was watching the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer, actually, I was like torn because half of me was fangirling so hard.
Of course.
And the other half of me was just sitting there like, about time, and being super bitter. So I really wish that developers would at least... They seem to do a better job of it this time around, where they were like giving us dates.
We didn't get a lot of just loose promises, except from Nintendo.
Yeah.
They had a lot of them.
They made a lot of them. So that was kind of my one qualm, And I know it's a business game that they're also playing, but
yeah,
I would love to have more solid news.
Yeah, because I felt the same way. Because the Kirby game looks awesome, and so does the Yoshi game. Both of those are local co-op, and I was like, I played through the last Yoshi game, is Yoshi's Woolly World, with my wife. We loved it, and I was thinking, oh, I can play that with my wife. Oh, I can play Kirby with my wife. Oh, next year.
If I remember, it's still out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge Nintendo fan. They're gonna do their own thing.
Yeah, and Nintendo. At this point, like for me, I grew up with Nintendo, like you did, I'm sure. Where
of course, the first game I played was a Nintendo game. It's
exactly, and so they have so much ability to do stuff. They can get away with a lot more, I feel like, than some other developers can.
Oh, they totally can.
Mostly because I know that they'll come through usually in the end with something really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Super Mario Odyssey just blew me out of the park. Like. It was probably one of the most exciting announcements, I think, of the whole thing.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I was super skeptical about that game when they were first announcing it, but I'm on board. I can't wait. So what is your favorite? What do you have a top moment or maybe a biggest surprise moment? The biggest surprise was Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah.
I mean. We got I don't remember. I think it was 2009. we got this weird concept trailer And it looks nothing like the trailer they put Ubisoft showed off this year. The artistic take on it is so different from the first one.
I went back and looked it up actually because I was talking with a while on stream with another person about how excited I was, and they're just like, dude, this had been announced like over a decade ago, and so I went back and watched it, and I was like, what? This is not the same thing at all.
I'm okay with that. I mean, if they're okay, good for them that they're finally putting out the game that they wanted to put out. But like I said with Shadow of the Colossus, there are gamers younger than this game has been in development. So a whole new generation of gamers are going to play this game, and they would have no idea what Beyond Good and Evil, the first one, was. So a fresh take on it, a more mature take on it, is maybe a smart move.
Yeah.
So this is part. I just want to say, did you play Mirror's Edge Catalyst or Mirror's Edge for that matter?
I played Mirror's Edge, not Catalyst, though.
So part of me, just a small voice in the back of my head, is worried that Mirror's Edge Catalyst was a very poor follow-up to a fantastic game.
Loved Mirror's Edge.
Yeah, and the things they changed were not necessarily for the better. So at least like part of me is like worried that someone's going to mess it up somewhere.
Oh my gosh, it's like you guys have had 15 years.
Yeah, so I'm really I'm trying to push that voice away because I would like to think that this is a labor of love.
Right.
But you never know. We don't know anything about the game beyond the trailer.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. We saw no gameplay. Just got to keep our fingers crossed, I think. Yeah. I think for me, this was definitely not going to happen this E3, but like for me, that game is probably Final Fantasy VII, like it is for so many people.
Oh yes.
Where I'm so excited. Like I remember seeing the trailer last E3, was it?
I want to say 2 E3s ago.
Maybe 2 E3s ago. And flipping out, like,
oh my god, yeah,
almost to tears. I was so excited. And yeah, that little voice, I'm having to tell myself with that as well, where it's like, you got to understand it's a different team. They are coming at it from a different perspective with a different generation of software. Hopefully the core of what made that game great is still going to be there. And I feel that same way for Beyond Good and Evil too. Hopefully they just keep to the core of what made that game great.
Yes. So what was your favorite takeaway, your favorite announcement from this year's E3?
Oh my gosh. I think, biggest surprise was definitely how excited I got for the new Mario game.
Right.
But I think the game that I'm most excited for is probably the Shadow of the Colossus remake.
Oh, yeah.
To be honest. I think there's so many good games coming out, but that game was so pivotal for me as a gamer when I was younger that
Yes.
I am really excited to revisit it and sort of re-experience all the feels.
All the feels.
Oh, and the epic battles.
That is definitely a feels game. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Biggest disappointment, if you have any, you mentioned a lot of meh moments.
Yeah, I think no major disappointments, which again, I think shows how solid the show was as a whole. I think, I think the biggest disappointment was maybe I really wanted to see more Last of Us 2 footage, but I have a feeling they're probably saving that for the PlayStation conference that's coming up.
Yes.
So I'm willing to let that go.
I'm not like overly disappointed by this. This is honestly the first year I've really paid attention and watched all the conferences as they were live. So I have nothing to compare it to as far as past E3s.
Right.
Being the Xbox fan, I was kind of hoping Microsoft would say something about Halo. Because I am a Halo fan.
I didn't even realize. Yeah, they didn't mention Halo at all.
There was a leak not too long ago. It was credited as fake, but I was a little bummed that they didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
But I'm an Xbox Halo fan.
Yeah.
I'm still hoping the guys watch. It's honestly, I kind of forget that we're on camera. This is for my channel, so I have an audience to also acknowledge. I mean, I have some fans and viewers who are also big Xbox fans, and I know a lot of us just want a good Halo game, and we haven't had one in a little while. So, this isn't the year for it, but soon. Overall, I was happy with a lot of things announced. What a time to be a gamer.
Yeah.
We were talking a bit how uninspired we've been over the course of the year, and this is really reigniting a spark with me. A lot of things I'm looking forward to playing and having fun with.
Yeah, I think, we talked about it a little bit before and again in this recording, where it's nice to... Right now, I'm finding that I'm playing games to really enjoy myself and not necessarily escape, but, I want to be able to enter a different world.
Yeah. I liken it to comfort food.
Yeah, it is. It's very much like comfort food. And I want to be invested, and I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And so what's really exciting for me is that there are a lot of games that seem to be game developers who are rediscovering that and putting that into the games they make. And we are lucky as gamers to be able to sort of reap the benefits of what they create, because we have some really good games coming.
Yeah.
And just as someone who's really into plot and story and emotional investment in games,
yes,
I feel like every year we get stories that are deeper and more nuanced, and so I appreciate that. Especially as an adult gamer, I feel like as we grow, the taste that we have kind of matures with the games that we play.
I agree with you entirely.
Yeah, and so I'm seeing that kind of follow us, which is great. So. Yeah, like you said, I'm inspired. I really am excited to go and play games now and just sort of rediscover.
Like a lot of these games, like Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Beyond Good and Evil 2. There's a lot of games here. Like I'm thinking, these are sequels or remakes of games that I enjoyed playing so much. I would love to play them again on my channel. Like Ori and the Blind Forest was an amazing game, and I just to experience it again, I'm inspired. I'm happy.
Life is good for gamers right now.
Yes, it is. Oh, jeez. We've been talking for hours.
Oh, so many hours. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on my
Thank you for having
YouTube
me.
channel. Of course. I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time, and I'm happy that this was finally the case to do it. Now to officially sign this off, I think.
Okay.
So that was E3. That was E3 2017. I was joined by the lovely Kimchica. Thank you so much for being here. Remind people again where they can find you.
Yeah. Let's see. YouTube is the place that I frequent the most. It's just youtube.com/Kimchica. And then I'm on Twitter @Kimchica25. So that's where I post pretty much everything else, and obviously Twitch, /Kimchica. Try to keep consistent. But yeah, good. YouTube is where you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you again. Guys, I'm Ravel. This was a Geek at a Place. Thank you so much for watching. Give this really long video a like. It really helps my channel out. Subscribe. What are your thoughts on E3? Let me know in the comments. Catch y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye. Got all the cat hair off my shirt.
Oh, I know. I have a sock that I've put on my mic to try and get it to not be to diffuse it a little bit. Yeah. But somehow it was a clean sock when I put it on there, and my cats just have taken it for their own.
And my cat is pure white, and I'm wearing a black shirt, so.
Oh, nice.
All right, we're recording on 3. Clap.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Let's
try again.
Let's try that again. So I'm gonna clap on 3.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Good enough. I'll figure it out. All right. Ready?
Yep. Ready.
Okay.